Welcome everyone to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me as always. And I'm excited to dive into the July energy update. So we have 5 things that Spirit wanted to bring up. One thing to remember is that the kind of overall energy of July is fast-paced and is a lot. There's a lot happening. And so Spirit said these were 5 things that they wanted to focus on. But there's a lot happening, and I want to say they're not saying a lot happening in a negative way, in like a watch out, here it comes, you're going to get pummeled. It's not that. It's just with the rapid pace in which we're changing right now, there's just a lot happening on all levels, right? Like so many individual karmas, individual journeys are shifting and changing alongside the collective karmas, and collective journeys are shifting and changing. And galactic energies are shifting and changing. Like it's kind of like all hands on deck, all things are happening all at once. So within that, the first thing they wanted me to talk about is one thing that Spirit is going to bring through a lot this month is number patterns. Many of you might have already been noticing this for a little while now, but they said to look for number patterns for confirmation and communication from them. That's a really big thing right now. Is one of the easiest ways for your guides to bring through messages, confirmation, communication is in number patterns. So keep an eye out for number patterns, which ones are repeating themselves. Even like if you ask Spirit questions, right? And in your head pops a certain number as well, like that's a messenger through numbers as well, right? Like that's the way that Spirit can be the messenger in numbers, even if you see it in your head. So it doesn't always have to be external to you on a clock, on a license plate. I mean, that's the most common, obviously, but sometimes you'll get that insight either in a dream. There's something about a certain number in a dream or in your meditation as well. And that's a way that Spirit can really help bring that through. So look for the patterns in numbers, okay? Number 2, next one is there is also going to be a big increase in psychic, intuitive, and paranormal activities and awareness. So that has to do with this really big consciousness shift that we've been doing since January, and especially since the eclipse season. We are becoming more psychic. And really what that actually means is we're just coming back in tune to our divine natural nature, right? So with this increase in frequency that we're now living in, the world around us becomes more interactive in the subtle ways. Because remember, when you are connecting in with Spirit, when you're tapping into psychic skills, mediumistic skills, it's about the subtleties. Spirit communicates in subtleties often. If you think about it, when a ghost comes through to make an apparition or to move something, the amount of energy they have to expend or expense to create that physical thing is huge, and they prefer to use more subtle ways. So becoming more psychic, becoming more intuitive is just really actually raising your frequency and becoming more aware of the subtle nature around you. And the more aware you become of that, the more sensitive, right? Like back in the day, people would just say, oh, you're so sensitive. That sensitivity is actually your awareness in the subtle realms. And that awareness equals psychic and intuitive abilities. So if you notice more paranormal activity, if you notice more intuitive sense about things where you're like, oh my gosh, I knew that was going to happen, or I was just thinking about her and she phoned. This is not a freaky thing, and this is not meant to freak you out. This is actually meant to show you how you are becoming in tune to these subtle realms. And that is all because of how you are raising your frequency. And the beautiful thing is there's enough people on our planet right now raising their frequencies, as we know, that the collective bandwidth is at a higher frequency, which makes it more possible for you to tap into your own high frequency and then go above that. Like it just keeps feeding back in this feedback loop. So with this increase in psychic and intuitive energies, activities, even paranormal activity, remember one key thing. You have a voice always. You have a right to say what is okay with you what you like, what you don't like. For example, I always teach in my courses that you have every right to set parameters with spirit. And an example of one of my parameters for a long, long time was always from 9 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night, I will be available for whether it's apparitions or voices or insights. But after 9 o'clock on my planet in my time, please don't bother me. If you come at nighttime, it freaks me out. Do not stand at the end of my bed. Don't hover in the corner. Don't whisper something to me in the night. That won't help. That will shut me down. That'll put me into fear. And I didn't realize my power in being able to say that until one of my mentors a long time ago told me to just set parameters. Like, what are your boundaries? And I remember as soon as I did that, it all stopped. I didn't get bothered at nighttime. And then I got to relax more at nighttime. And then I got to realize how much my voice really mattered in that communication and in that co-creation with spirit. So if you're noticing increased activity, psychic activity, intuitive activity, paranormal activity, and it's in a way that makes you uncomfortable, talk to your guides, speak out loud. You could speak in your head too, but I find speaking out loud just really allows us to not only say what we need to say, but also hear it, which validates our having said it, right? Like we know it has been completed. It's not just a ruminating thought. So set your boundaries with them so that you can be comfortable in this evolution of awakening for you, okay? All right, the next one is that this kind of leads into the next two are kind of connected. So we're in a time right now of a real like conscious energy exchange. And so Spirit was saying, be really conscious of how your energy is being affected by people, by environments, and by content. Notice what that is doing to your energy, even music, because with this higher frequency that we're in, there is a faster, bigger bandwidth, higher velocity, clearer path, if you will, for energy exchange, which means it has the power to really empower us and lift us up very rapidly. It has the power to help us heal very rapidly, but it also has the power to take us down, because when you are more sensitive, you feel more deeply, you imbibe or embody it more fully. And so with this, they're saying be really conscious in your energy exchanges. And so just really recognizing this month, what makes you feel good, what lifts you up versus what kind of brings you down, what pulls you away. This is so important because it's going to help you kind of rebalance your own energy and really get to know who you are, where you're at, and what you're about. Now, the other thing too, with this conscious energy exchange, you also, in that consciousness comes conscious choice, right? This awareness of what do you want to do. You can use this bandwidth, this, high velocity energy available to you in a way to really pick you up. So not only is it about navigating, your environments, your interactions and all of that, but it's also purposely choosing to uplift your own energy, to use the energy to your fullness. And so an example of that is even standing outside in the sun. If you stand outside in the sun and you just simply stand there and observe nature, that's a beautiful thing. That's calming, that's energizing, that's regulating for your body. At the same time, if you add real thought and consciousness, you could spend a minute of that time breathing in the energy of the sun, connecting to the consciousness of light, because we know light holds consciousness, right? That's the three guides of the light. They are light consciousness. There is so much beauty when it comes to light consciousness. We can take that energy in within just a minute of our time to really fuel our bodies, fuel our energy, fuel our mind, fuel our spirit, kind of like a solar panel. And we can do that by adding consciousness in that energy exchange. Instead of just standing outside, getting a bit of a tan, we can get so much more when we bring the consciousness into it. And I want to take a little sidebar journey here for a moment to share that when I had my surgery recently, so for those of you that haven't seen my daily messages, I had a surgery just a couple weeks ago. No big health concern or anything. Everything is fine. It was really to bring to a close a health issue that I had had. It was a planned surgery, so all is well. Everything is going really well. During my surgery, again, I got to have the coolest experience. It seems to be something that happens for me to have really interesting experiences while my body is undergoing some sort of a healing or a change or something. Now, this experience was not an NDE. There was no point where I was asked, do you want to stay? Do you want to go? I had already negotiated that in my previous surgery in 2019. This one, however, was such an amazing soul journey experience to many different places. And I plan to share that all with you once I get it all together, because it's vast and it would take so long for me to explain everything. However, there's one part I want to explain, which really connects to this point that I'm talking about with the sun and the consciousness in that moment. There was one point in my journey while I was under that I got to go into the energy of light and into the energy of where the three guides of the light are. And I got to see how the energy, it kind of looked like an orb, almost like a sun, if you will. And I got to go inside it. And inside it was this movement and almost like undulation of light expanding and contracting within its expression of being. And so I got to see, in essence, how alive light is. It's like I got to visually experience what the consciousness is versus just having the three guides of the light speak to me, which they do. I got to see how they express their consciousness in expansion and contraction in these ways that almost looked like this. If you had stalactites and stalagmites in a cave moving though, and they could kind of like expand and contract, I got to see that in that experience. And it was so neat because it really validated the understanding that consciousness goes so much deeper than we realize. Energy of consciousness is so vast. And so when I say connecting to the sun energy as well in this energy exchange would be like connecting to, when you take a breath and you're breathing air, and you take that really nice deep breath, and when you do and you release it, you feel such a nourishment in your being. You feel this like satisfaction energy, this like, yes, there it is. That's like, yes, that's a gaseous exchange in your body and all of that, but there's also an energy in that. And so connecting into the energy of the sun and light, for example, can refuel your body in that same way because of not only just the nourishment that sunlight brings us, but the energetics that it brings us because it contains consciousness in its own way. And it's funny because I know that this can be really mind-bending for some people because they think there needs to be a biological aspect of something in order for it to have consciousness. But the more and more that we learn and the more that I learn and experience, the more I realize it doesn't. So all to say, a time of conscious energy exchange, like Spirit is talking about, is really about you recognizing what that is for you and expanding on it, being thoughtful, being conscious, being aware. You might notice this energy exchange even with stones and crystals because we know that they carry a ton of energy in them as well, can be with nature. But the most kind of in our face energies of that are usually kind of people, places, and environments and content. So I know that was a little bit of a tangent, but I'm very excited to share more of what I learned when I can bring it all together in a very cohesive way. Okay, now the next one that Spirit wanted to talk about, kind of, it goes on the tails of this conscious energy exchange, is a clear mind equals clear sight. And this is really beautiful because they're saying the more that you, again, like this all ties together, the more that you are aware of what's coming in terms of your sensitivities, the more conscious you are in the energy exchanges, the more clear you can be in your mind. And the more clear you can be in your mind, the more clearly you can see, either literally, spiritually, or metaphorically, what you need to do next, where you need to go next, what a situation is trying to show you, all of that kind of thing. They basically said that your mind can open or close doors. Our mind is so key in navigating this journey on this planet. The mind is absolutely key for this. So consider, how can you clear up any residual kind of gunk in your mind? And I'm talking about like old narratives, old traumas, things that we've talked a lot about, and we all have it, and they come in layers too, and in waves. And the key that Spirit keeps saying is, when something comes up in your mind, a trigger, an old thought, a worry, give it space to be heard. And then, this is the important part, choose what you're going to do about it. Choose what you're going to do about it. Sometimes that requires us to go into some healing, and perhaps we find a practitioner to help us move through that healing. Maybe it's a new spiritual practice. Maybe it's a exercise in forgiveness, whatever it may be. Sometimes, though, too, when that energy or that thought piece comes up, it doesn't require us to go back into it and heal it anymore. It actually requires us to just release it and let it go. And one really neat way Spirit has taught me to do this is, when a thought comes in that I'm like, wait a minute, I'm done with that. Like, I've done the healing. Why is this coming up again? Sometimes it can be brought up by pesky energies. Sometimes it's being brought up because it's still a neural pathway in your body that, a certain thing, a certain smell triggers that thought, and then it comes back in. What you can do in that moment is to cut the bonds or the ties to that thought and release it. And so however you visualize that, I always kind of visualize this bond, or this, a bond between me and the thought. I will cut it, and then I will send that energy away and bring my own energy back into myself. And I will say something like, that is not a part of my energy, my thought pattern, and my focus anymore. I send that away. And by doing something conscious in that moment to shift your energy, again, reinforces the energy that you are wanting to be and wanting to embody. So a clear mind allows you clear sight, even in your boundaries that you're setting, which then again really allows you to open or close doors. You get to choose what you're focusing on, what you're releasing, and all of that. So consider, where is the clarity of your mind right now? And are there things you can do to bring more clarity, to close certain doors, to allow other doors to open? You really are the co-creator of your reality. So it's really about getting deeply connected to what it is that you want. Spirit's showing me the imagery right now in the movie The Notebook. When Ryan Gosling is saying, he's like, what do you want? What do you want? That's kind of the energy of the universe, or Spirit, lovingly saying, what is it we want? Allow yourself to know what you want, or to figure it out, or to explore what it is. Because again, a clear mind, which really a clear mind comes when we're in alignment with who we are, equals clear sight. We can then see more clearly where it is we want to go, what we want to do, and all of that. All right. Now, the last point Spirit wanted to talk about, and probably one of the biggest ones actually too, is this month is a very big month of a shift point in karmas. And because we've had such a high frequency energy shift, like I talked about in the beginning, right? We've also been moving through a lot of karmic closures, karmic stories, whether they're from this lifetime or past lifetimes that we brought into this one to try and close, to complete. We're at this real shift point, and they showed me again with these doors, right? That we're closing one door, and then we're turning around and we're opening the next door. And for many people, you're right in that turnaround point. And this is because you've been doing a lot of karmic realigning, whereas like the last couple months, remember, Spirit talked a lot about karmic realignment, and that things were coming up for you to clear, to move through, to readjust rapidly so that now you're in the point of balancing and moving forward into an entirely new cycle. And this is really, really important. And this is why we've had so many solar flares. The Schumann resonance has been going crazy. This is all because of this high frequency shift and this higher consciousness. We have the ability right now, even in connection to the astrology right now, to be massively influencing our karmic cycles and closing old karmic cycles that no longer need to be part of our soul's journey. And what this does is this is giving you the opportunity to free up your soul energy in a very, very big way. Now, I also want to say too that sometimes we think karmas are these things that are kind of beyond us, that we can't really get out of it because it's a karmic energy. It's a debt that has to be repaid. So what happens if that debt, so to speak, that has to be repaid is, in connection to somebody that we can't mend it with on this planet at this time? One of the things that you can do if, say you've done some past life regressions and you've got a cycle with this person over and over and over, or this situation over and over and over, and you've been doing a lot of healing on your side, but it just can't seem to close. You can also consider asking your guides about the contract behind that connection, that union, that friendship, or that event. What is the contract behind it? And you can then kind of rip up or end that contract in a way of saying, this is not working anymore. This connection, this karma is not coming to a close, and my soul cannot be dragged down by this anymore. I have been doing this healing. I've been doing this and this and this. I now, request the tearing up of this contract, for it is not serving either of us anymore. And you can make sort of a ceremony out of that. You could do a past life regression. You could go into the Akashic records and bring that forward. You could ask, if you did an Akashic record reading, you could ask that they bring forward that information about that contract, and then have that contract released. We have more power than we think, even with karmas. So it's something to really consider right now, because we are so in the thick of changing karmas. This is really helping to change the trajectory of where we're going. We're no longer being stuck in the same karmic loops over and over and over, even on a soul level. And our consciousness and our awareness of that even gives us more power to shift, change, and move forward in them. So definitely a lot to consider. This is definitely a very empowering month, very empowering month. So much has to do with the mind this month. I really want to say so much has to do with the mind in everything that we're doing, from number patterns to, recognizing our psychic and intuitive selves, to the conscious energy exchange, to clear mind, being clear sight, and all of these karmic realignments. It's the empowerment and the embodiment of the mind in a really clear way. So I hope this helps you to really feel empowered in who you are. And this is why Spirit has been talking all this year about stepping into who you are, and take some time to recognize where you've really mastered the mind and how much more you have, how far you've even come just this year. You've come really, really far. So give yourself the opportunity to see that, to feel that, to embody that. And this month has such a bright, beautiful potential for you. So I will leave that with all of you. Again, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I hope this inspired you. It really inspired me too. And yeah, I think I'll leave it there. All right, everyone. Have a beautiful rest of your week, and I will see you all next week.